The Let's Go Live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, it is Friday. It is December 3rd. Can you believe it's December? We're almost into 2022, and we're going to be ringing in the new year talking Ghislaine Maxwell. But before we get into it, let's make sure that the stream is alive and well all across the internets. And then we'll make sure. All right, it looks like we're alive and well. So let's kick it off, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group. We're located in Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, Ghislaine Maxwell, trial day 5. We've got a lot to get to. We're going to take a look at a number of different witnesses that came out today, but we're going to pick back up with Alessi. This was Epstein's housekeeper who came out today and was cross-examined by Ghislaine Maxwell's defense lawyer, Jeffrey Pagliuca. The G is silent like lasagna. And mixed reactions on this. Some people thought that this was sort of good cross-examination. Some people thought that this was a disaster. So we're going to check in with a friend of ours, guy by the name of Joe Neerman over at Good Logic here on YouTube. He is tagged down in the description. I learned that yesterday. You can tag other channels. And so he's there. He's boots on the ground in court, justice inside. And so check with his channel as well. But he specifically made a video for us today talking about this cross-examination of Alessi, specifically by Jeffrey Pagliuca. Said it was a little bit, maybe not so good. So we'll check in with him and see what he has to say about it. And then we jump into a different witness, a guy by the name of Gregory Patrick. He's a CSI. Do you remember that show? Crime Scene Investigator? That's what this guy did. He went into Jeffrey Epstein's house and had to, enhance, which is just disgusting. So he came into court and testified today about a lot of what he saw, the search warrant and sort of, poking around the different rooms. And so we have a lot of images or a lot of testimony that included a lot of images that we didn't get to see. So big portions of this afternoon were all basically sealed off, it sounds like, from any of the observational rooms where these attorneys and these people observing the trial would be able to report on it, all because it's, it's highly sensitive. It's involving underage individuals. And so they got to make sure that it's all sealed and outside the purview of the public eye, which is not, not a bad thing. But the question is it overly broad? And we'll break that down. In other words, is the court sealing too much stuff? Are they keeping too much stuff away and out of the public eye? We'll find out. We'll see what you have to say about it as well. And then we jump into our last witness of the day, Michael Dawson. This was a detective who found something called twin torpedoes. Uh-oh. That doesn't sound good. Or maybe it's, I don't know, depending on what you're into. Maybe it's, maybe it sounds great. I don't know. But twin torpedoes comes out in trial testimony today. And so it's going to be a juicy one. If you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. There's a form out there that looks just like this. If you're a member or supporter over there, then we're going to take your questions as they come in at the end of the segments, at the end of the program. So not as they come in, at the end. And if you're a supporter over on YouTube, if you're sending in the super chats, those are cool. Those pop up right on the screen like that. Wolfgang Deo submitted one right before the show started. It says, if sex work is real work, then we would need to require sexual favors to be a part of getting promotions in the corporate world. Question mark. He's asking that. So I don't know if that's a question really or a policy proposal. So we'll leave that up to you to decide. But thank you. That's exactly what it looks like, Wolfgang, when you submit a great question. And I don't have a good answer on that one. We also have the clips that are available over at Robert Gruler ESQ Clips. And so I know these shows can go long and sometimes you just want to, watch a specific witness or a specific cross-examination. And so go check that channel out. It's down in the description, and check out all of the other links down there, including Joe Neerman, Good Logic. So let's get into it. Ghislaine Maxwell, day 5 trial. Everybody's working their way into court, including Ghislaine's family. This was a picture from outside of the court. You can see we've got Isabel, who is wheeling, her suitcase into court. Looks like you got media there. Got this guy in the hoodie and this other guy has a full camera gear. Taking a look at Ghislaine's sister. Also have Mr. Kevin. This is Kevin Maxwell Isabel's brother. And so they're both making their way into court. We see also making their way in, we've got Ghislaine Maxwell's defense lawyers. Heard a lot from these two people. Laura Menninger, we saw, was the defense lawyer that did the cross-examination of Jane. Jane was the first victim that came out from the government's case in chief. We also see Jeffrey Pagliuca. Like I said, the G is silent, so, keep that clean. It's like lasagna. You don't say lasagna, so don't say Pagliuca. It's Pagliuca, obviously. Now, something interesting has been happening. As the trial has been unfolding, we've been getting more and more information. And so, at the start of this thing, I know, like, many of you have been feeling very frustrated. Why is this thing not televised? One of the biggest trials, sort of our time. This case has been, I would say, maturing is the word, over the last several decades. It's been percolating our whole lives, really, some of us. And now it's kind of coming to a head. And so why has this all been so under wraps? Why is everything so sealed, and all exhibits are under lock and key? Media is not super interested in this. Nobody can see it. There's no public call-in lines, all of that stuff. And I've been extremely frustrated as well. But I was speculating. I was thinking, okay, well, the reason why we're going to create this mind map process and use this is because this data is going to continue to trickle out. And as more and more testimony comes out from all of the witnesses, we're going to be able to start to corroborate their testimony. We're going to say, oh, well, Jane, she said that she was dating somebody and they were both on the same show. And so we can sort of, put these together, and then Matt comes out here and he testifies and he gives us some more details. And then Alessi comes out, and then we talk about the school that these people went to, and then everybody can sort of figure out who we're talking about. That's one way. The other way is just as people are getting closer to trial, we're naturally going to know who the next witness is, and the next witness, including the next victims, are going to be walking their way into court. And eventually, people are going to identify who the victims are as well, if they just don't out themselves in the first place. Just say, all right, look, I'm walking to court. Here's who I am. Let's get it over with. And so I'm not sure if that's the case with this next woman, but it's looking like that. We have Teresa Helm. Several media outlets are now identifying her because her attorney has come out and identified her. And so this is Teresa Helm. She's a victim of Epstein, and her attorney was seen heading into the courthouse on Friday. So this is a new person. This is a new, individual that we can add on to the list. And yeah, I'm seeing some other people, throwing out names of the other individuals there. We see here Ben Feuerherd is a great follow over on Twitter, and he is telling us that Teresa's attorney, Sigrid McCauley, publicly identified Teresa yesterday. And so kind of, open, kind of fair game now, I guess, to talk about her as somebody who's a victim in this case, because her own attorney has publicly identified her. And so, we're all sort of, walking on eggshells a little bit, trying to comply with the rules. And that's, I think, the right thing to do, because we want to respect everybody's privacy and respect their wishes. At the same time, we're trying to do our job and analyze this trial, in depth with detail. And so we're going to have to put these pieces together. I think a big thing that's happening in this trial that I'm not really happy about, I think is a big disservice to the rest of us that want to make sure that there is accountability and transparency that's taking place in our justice system. We don't really get a good opportunity to do that here. And it's very important for those of us reading the transcripts, for those of us who are trying to make heads or tails of what this witness said. Was that person credible? What did they look like? What did the jurors think of Jane? What did the jurors think of Matt? Well, I don't know. Kind of depends. Is Matt a 300-pound overweight guy or not? Is he a male model supermodel? Because it's closer to the latter if you know who he is. And, it's important. That stuff matters. How they talk, how people communicate. This is all the body language stuff, their credibility. Were those tears real that came out of Jane or not? Because she's just an actress. Well, we don't really get to know much about that. It would help if we knew who Jane was, wouldn't it? I think it would. And so part of what we're doing here is trying to, in depth, do a deep dive analysis into this case. And so if the details of the facts reveal the identities and we piece it together, we're not going to play like dumb idiots here. Oh, I don't know who it is. And just continue our analysis. So as this continues to come forward, we're going to continue to put the puzzle pieces where they belong within reason. So that's the policy, unless I change it. All right. So now that we've got that, we know who's walking into court. We have now Sigrid McCauley, the attorney for Teresa, let's take a look at the mind map. It's been a couple days since we've done a refresher on the mind map, and I've got some new additions. It's actually filling out. It's going to look like chaos, so brace yourselves. This is the updated mind map as of today. There's still some more work to do on this puppy, and I'm going to do a full video on this, sort of a weekly update at the end of every week. So we're going to break this down. I'll go through every single branch in depth in a full video that will come out after every single week in the trial. But for now, let's just kind of clean some of this up so we can make heads or tails of what we're talking about here. So we'll get rid of the prosecutors. Well, let's talk about the prosecutors first. So today we had a lot of Maureen Comey. She was doing some of the direct exam and I believe some of the cross-examination. Don't know much about the other people, so we'll just close that up. We also can get rid of some of these additional documents. I have some shout outs to the people who I'm pulling some of this stuff from. We've got Inner City Press, Classfeld Reports, Ben for Heard, and Good Logic. So we'll close those documents up. We'll talk about the issues when I make the full video. Today, the defense attorneys we had, as you saw walking into court, we hear a little bit from Jeff Pagliuca. He does some of the cross-examination of Alessi. We hear from Laura Menninger just a little bit. Christian Everdell was actually in court today in the afternoon doing also some of the cross-examination of, I believe it was the two police officers, actually. So the crime scene investigator and the detective who found the torpedoes, he did the cross-examination of them. Bobby Sternheim, the lead kind of defense attorney, was in there talking about some evidentiary issues about the submission of a video, and so we can close them up. Now, we talked about Isabel Maxwell, Kevin Maxwell, and her attorney, so we can close them up. We really are going to spend most of our time talking about the witnesses. So we've already seen that the exhibits that I was mentioning earlier, they're now trickling out here. So remember when we talked about Paul Visosky? I think he was the actual very first witness. A lot of the exhibits that he talked about, they are now trickling out. So they're making their way onto Twitter. They're now sort of a part of the public record. And so we can expand this out and we can see what they used Visosky to get in. So they talk about him, and specifically, well, they identify this runway photo. They give us this photo and we can see it here. It's that photo of Government Exhibit 310. It's a photo of Epstein and a younger gal who is not one of the victims. This is Sarah Kellen, who was his assistant. And so you're going to see Kellen in these other two photos. Kellen smiling outside, sitting along with Ghislaine Maxwell. We have Kellen smiling inside and outside with Ghislaine Maxwell. Whoops. And then we have another one that's admitted. We can see this is government exhibit. Let's see what this one is. I don't have the number on that one, but this is Kellen in a green dress. And so Visosky is the person who admits all of that. And Sarah Kellen, we know, because we can take this over here, Sarah Kellen is a named co-conspirator who was somebody who was specifically identified in the non-prosecution agreement that was completed in 2007 under Jeffrey Epstein. So you can actually see that right here, I believe it is. Yeah, her name is right there, Sarah Kellen. This is a part of the 2007 non-prosecution agreement. So we've got that in there. And we know that Visosky talked a lot about that. So we don't know what's going to come of Sarah Kellen, really. I mean, we don't know if she's coming back as part of the government's case in chief. She's specifically included in the non-prosecution agreement. So we don't know what she's going to do, if the government is going to call her in or not. So we'll make that connection there. So we can see what he brought in, a lot of the photographs, a lot of the Sarah Kellen stuff. We've got Matt. He came in, sort of know who he is. We'll see if we identify him later on. We saw Daniel Besselson. Now, one of the exhibits that he brought forward, this was the financial guy, and he was the guy who talked about the Jeffrey Epstein Lodge. So I just added this one. This was that sort of lodge that Epstein paid for, had his name put on it, and that's the same school, the Interlochen School of Arts, that took place in Michigan that Jane testified about. So you can see we've got this relationship between Daniel and Jane up here. Then we talked briefly with Paul Kane. We talked a lot about Lisa Rocchio yesterday, and they were Paul was talking about some of the financial stuff that Epstein contributed a lot to the School of Professional Children's School, whatever that was. And then Dr. Lisa Rocchio, she gave us the 5 elements of grooming. We talked all about that. Then we had Juan Patricio Alessi. And he came out and talked about a lot of these exhibits. Now, some of this is very interesting. The household manual that we are going to hear from today, because he's being cross-examined now. Remember that Pagliuca is now cross-examining Juan Patricio Alessi. This was Epstein's former housekeeper. And so let's get caught up on what he said. Identified Jane, said ages between 14 and 15, talked about Ghislaine, identified a lot of topless women, talked about Virginia Giuffre. Epstein got 3 massages a day, cleaned up some torpedoes on a regular basis. But if you remember yesterday, he talked about the house manual. Remember, he identified the house manual? And remember, we were joking about him not being John? He said, my name is Juan. It's not John. And we were having some fun with that. Well, we're going to get into that again today. But he identified couple pieces of property. Number one, the Palm Beach property. Obviously, a lot of stuff happened here. This is Government Exhibit 212. And so we talk a lot about this. They go through it piecemeal, sort of photo by photo. The prosecution is walking all the different police officers through this. Literally, tell me this, second floor. We talked with Alessi yesterday, and I think he was even going through some of the blueprints. I could have that wrong, but I think it was Alessi who was literally going through the blueprint. So in other words, Epstein prosecutors went and got, the building codes over from, Florida, wherever that was. Alessi also obviously has been to the New York property. So we get this exhibit in and we can see that's the same evidence. That's the same image that we saw in the original Ghislaine indictment. So spend some time talking about that property. That property had the massage room, I believe. And then this was very interesting. So this is the household manual. We have a couple interesting clips here. So I actually have a full, you can find a full copy of the entire manual. It's 58 pages long, and the full PDF is here. Oh, by the way, well, I'll tell you about that after we're done. You can zoom in here and you can see this is part of the grooming and the guest relation. So appearance, it says, is extremely important for high standards. This is what Alessi was testifying to yesterday. Remember, Alessi said, I had the manual. Let's break this down real quickly. Alessi said, I had the manual. What did the manual say to do? It said to keep a telephone book right next to the bed, the phones, so that Epstein's had their directory at hand. That's how we get to Exhibit 52. That's how they want to get that document in. That's what we were fighting about yesterday. So this is one of those pages from that manual. And the manual is pretty pejorative. The manual is it's kind of rude. Okay, it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's rude. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm not a billionaire. But, it's like, do not address Mr. Epstein, Maxwell, and guests with your hands in your pocket. Do not eat or drink in front of Mr. Epstein, Mr. Maxwell, or their guests. Do not chew gum. When you're attending Miss Maxwell, cellular phones must be placed on vibrate. Phones should not ring. Don't use perfume. Smile. Smile, smile, smile. Channel all the questions through the estate manager. Being unobtrusive is the key. Do not discuss personal problems with guests. Always address by their name, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith. Make guests feel pampered and welcome. Use your judgment when conveying information to Epstein. If the matter is not urgent, leave a note clearly stating what you need to know. Wear the appropriate clothing. Don't have bulgy items in your pocket. Only Epstein can have bulges around here. Right? Stuff like that. You get another. Here, the manual is designed to give you proper guidance or assistance to perform your duties. Gathering as much information as possible will help you with the day-to-day. Use your communication skills. Checklists will be completed. And so you can take a look at the full PDF of this thing. We've got the full manual, pre-arrival preparations. We've got bathroom cleaning, the introduction. Manual is designed to give you proper guidance, grooming and guest relations. And then we see some of this stuff, which I think we're going to get to in the show today. Yeah, don't say, yeah, sure, no problem, you betcha. You say, yes, mister, of course, yeah, no problem at all, my pleasure. I would be very pleased to do that. You are quite right, sir. I have no idea, but I will find out immediately. Yes, Mr. Epstein. Yes, of course, Mrs. Maxwell. Right, that's how you talk. You don't say, yeah, sure, no problem. I don't know, gotcha. Speak like you're in $1 billion house, all right? To a compliment, you say, you are very kind. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Maxwell. I enjoy doing it. Cleaning up your torpedoes. My pleasure. Love it. Very kind. Happy to do it. See you tomorrow. To a justified criticism or a mistake, how do you deal with that? You say, I'm very sorry. Will not happen again. Completely my fault. Going to make the changes immediately. When entering a room, may I come in? So you can just see it goes on and on. How to answer the telephone. Guest pickup and drop off, escorting guests to their room, master bedroom. So this is where we get some interesting nuggets, isn't it? Regular pens on both bedside tables. What to put in the master bedroom. Remote controls, telephones on do not disturb. And look at this one right here. JE and GM telephone directories placed to the right of the telephone. Well, what is that all about? Oh, JE means Jeffrey Epstein, doesn't it? And GM says, Ghislaine Maxwell, telephone directories placed to the right of the phone. So now you bring in Alessi. Alessi was the housekeeper who did that. He put it right by the phone. Why? He was following the manual, obviously. So now the idea is to get that book in, get that document in, and you can see the rest of this. Q-tips, make sure the toothpaste is more than half full. If it's half empty, throw it out, get a new one. I don't want half-empty toothpaste, tubes. Gross. And what is Miss Maxwell like? Q-tips, round cotton pads, unlock the closets, fresh bar of soap, make sure the water is hot and running clear. Oh, this is, okay, interesting. I'm not sure that this is really relevant to the topic of today, but you can see she likes Scope mouthwash. She likes Kiehl's lip balm with SPF. She likes Evian face mist. Kiehl's cucumber toner. I don't know if this is applicable to any of the ladies out there, but that's the way they did it. So you can see, right, this is just a big, gigantic house manual. Might look even like a look at this. It's got a grocery list and everything. Household products, latex gloves. What are those for? He doesn't do any cleaning, so what's he using the latex gloves for? Ugh, gross. All right, so you see where this is going. Windows, cars, monthly, every 6 months, do this. This is a pretty good idea. I mean, this is actually a pretty nice thing. You might want this for your house, minus the pedophilia. Every 6 months, clean the drapes. Good reminder. Checklist, drain and clean the pool. It's good stuff. So, okay, so you can see what we've got here. Big, gigantic, huge document, and this puppy has been admitted to the jurors as an exhibit, as far as I can tell. Yeah, it looks like it here. Exhibit 606. All right, so that's what they've got going on. Now, that was another exhibit. That whole thing came in from Juan Patricio Alessi. And so we're going to jump into the testimony here in a quick minute. Let's just wrap this up for a second. We've got also Gregory Parkinson. We're going to have short testimony from these two guys. Was not able to find a photo yet of Detective Dawson. And Gregory Parkinson, I believe this is the right guy, but we'll dig into him when we get into the testimony and the transcripts from today's event. So Detective Michael Dawson, Gregory Parkinson, the crime scene investigator. You can see that as we're talking about this case, we're still in the government's witnesses. This is all still going to continue to expand out as we continue to hear from these other victims. And so we start to piece together who some of these people are. You can see over here on the Epstein wing, we're adding more names, more faces, more lawyers, more lawsuits, and this puppy's just going to continue to expand and expand and expand. Got a whole new section on Clinton now. We talked about that yesterday. And so we'll go through this in a lot more detail. Got a little bit more updates to make, and we'll get a separate video recorded at the conclusion of every week talking about the mind map. That's Ghislaine Maxwell's updated mind map at the end of trial day 5. Now, we've got to talk about testimony in court. Before we get there, want to show you what YouTube giving me grief. They're giving me grief over here. So I yesterday after the show, obviously instantly demonetized, and then I appealed it after manually reviewing. Can't monetize it. So here we are again, trial day 4, yesterday's show. YouTube is stopping us. So now listen, I understand that this is some sensitive stuff, that we're talking about torpedoes and cucumbers and buzzing cylinders. And it can be a little bit dicey out there. So you're going to notice as we go through this, I've got some red stars to remind myself to keep it PG on the program. So that's what that is. But hopefully it doesn't detract too much from the show, but we're going to see what we can do to operate within YouTube's rules is the right word. All right, so let's get into it. As I mentioned, our first witness in Ghislaine Maxwell trial day 5 is going to be Alessi. During the cross-examination, Jeff Pagliuca is going to come back out and start digging into Epstein's former housekeeper, the guy that we heard a lot from yesterday. But before we get there, we've got some sort of housekeeping business that we need to attend to. And both lawyers, Jeffrey Pagliuca and Maureen Comey, are now going to be arguing over this. Before the jury even came into court, they're talking about whether they can argue some of these things in front of the jury. The jury's outside the courtroom, and this was all stuff that was brought up during the pretrial process, as far as I know, and they're now at the moment, they're at that stage where they're hearing about the massages. They're hearing from Alessi. He's saying, look, I was cleaning up the Torpedos and, it was gross. And I put it in Glenn's bathroom in the bin, and there was, tapes in there, and the whole thing was just a mess. And so he's now talking about these massages. And so that opens the door to start talking about, stains and, lotions and oils and other objects that happen in the massage room and all of that stuff. And so now that, they're sort of going to dive into this testimony a little bit, they got to make sure that they can go into these things, that the judge is okay with that. So before the jury comes back out and it's time to actually go down this line of questioning, they're arguing about this right in front of the judge. They're saying, Judge, all right, listen, Maxwell's lawyer, Pagliuca, says, look, seeing bodily excretions on the table, Judge, is going to be prejudicial. Okay, if they see that object on the table, that bodily excretion, that one in particular, it's going to be a big problem. Prosecutor says it was a white stain, okay? It is entirely probative as to whether these massages were just massages or were, in fact, something more. So the defense attorney is characterizing it as a bodily excretion. The prosecutor is saying, look, it's a white stain, okay? It could have been a massage. It could have been something else. Judge says, well, I would permit lab tests. So if you want to go test it, then you can test it and then bring it back, and then we can know for sure. But they're going to, sort of deal with that. So I'm not sure that they ever talked about the stain, whatever that was. Then we jump into another issue. Okay. Well, how about those school uniforms? Allegedly, apparently, Epstein had a collection of schoolgirl uniforms in his property. That was found. So the U.S. attorney says, well, Judge, that's relevant as hell. We're talking about, underage things here. The fact that Jeffrey had an entire collection of girl uniforms, yeah, that's highly relevant. Maxwell says, no, it's not, Judge. It has very little connection to Mrs. Maxwell, has nothing to do with Ghislaine. We're here on trial for Ghislaine, remember, and that's overly prejudicial. The fact that Epstein may have been a pervert of the century has got nothing to do with Ghislaine. His house, his property, his schoolgirl uniform collections, not ours. Prosecutor says, yeah, but the schoolgirl costumes, even the small ones, they were found in the massage room, okay? And we know that Ghislaine was in the massage room. So that's why they're relevant. She knows about them. She knew all about it, so we should be able to talk about it. Defense attorney Pagliuca comes back and says, all right, well, listen, at least they should not be described as schoolgirl uniforms. Like, you can talk about them as outfits, but don't call them schoolgirl uniforms. Like, if they're in the room, he's sort of conceding. Like, okay, fine. If they're in the massage room and Ghislaine saw them and you want to talk about them, you can talk about them, but we're not going to be, calling them schoolgirl uniforms. Call them a t-shirt, not a uniform. And prosecutor says, I'll just lay the foundation then. I'm just going to lay the foundation. I'll just ask him, and he can just call them whatever he wants to call them. Judge says, well, yeah, you could say, exactly right. You could say that without describing them, just say, what did you find? Did you find these things? And so Maxwell's lawyer then picks back up. So they're sort of settling some of these issues. Maxwell Pagliuca says, the interior and the artwork changed by 2019. The witness we call, quote, Jane, said it was creepy. With drawing of monsters on the wall and unclothed women, we think these photos should be excluded. The photos of the unclothed girls in the room. They should be not allowed in. Defense attorney saying, keep that stuff out. We do not want it to come in. So the judge continues. There's a way to position two screens. Only show them to the jurors. And so this is what the judge does. I'm going to ask Miss Williams, somebody in the courtroom, and the AV people, can you show the video so only the jurors can see it and no one else? We'll see. Please bring in the jurors. Okay, so now we get that. So they're fleshing all this stuff out, and the judge finally says, all right, enough of this. We're just going to break it up. So we're gonna be able to present it to the jurors, but nobody else. And they can just kind of show them photos of these unclothed girls or women in the massage room. but nobody else is going to be able to see it. And we see that this is foreshadowing of a very slow afternoon because there was a lot of empty live tweets that I was expecting today. Why? Because all of the media was shut off for everybody in there because the judge shut it off. Said it was all sealed and only the cameras and only everything can be shown to the juror. So the people who were there are going, well, can't see anything. I guess we'll just sit here and not know what they're talking about. So that's what happened before Alessi comes back to the stand. Now, he comes back. Judge Nathan says, all right, Mr. Alessi, you may return. All rise, jury enters. And they start up Jeff Pagliuca here doing the cross-examination. Maxwell's lawyer, Pagliuca, says, all right, Mr. Alessi, you said you are called Juan. But don't you sometimes say, I am John? Alessi says, yeah, I am John in English. Oh, well, that kind of changes the story. Jeff says, all right, well, Miss Maxwell speaks Spanish and she called you Juan. You did not take that as an insult, did you? No, I did not. Oh, well, that's interesting because yesterday we spent a lot of time talking about how they kept calling him John, even though his real name is Juan, because they're racist white people. Turns out he's not even insulted by it. Okay. Glad we cleared that up. So then Maxwell's lawyer, Pagliuca, asks him about that $6,300. Allegation that he talked to the police back on direct examination. Comey says, you talked to the police about $6,300, right? And you weren't arrested, were you, right? And he said, no, I wasn't arrested at all. So Pagliuca comes back and he's asking him about that. Yeah, okay, so remember that $6,300? You took it, didn't you? Yeah. But didn't you lie? In fact, you stole it twice, didn't you? Alessi's not happy. He says, I did not lie. Pagliuca says, well, didn't you try to steal a gun? Didn't you steal over $5,000 to pay for the immigration papers of your girlfriend? Alessi's, it was not my girlfriend. So then Maxwell says, yeah, okay. And police officer Dawson, who actually might be this, I don't know if it's the same officer we're going to hear from later, but we hear from Detective Michael Dawson. This was, many, many years ago. So maybe he's got a promotion since then. That'd be very interesting if it was the same officer or when this questioning happened. I don't know. Anyways, police officer Dawson questioned you about the gun, about the $5,000. He says, no, I went to him. He didn't come to me. And you told him you went in to steal a gun. Alessi suddenly, I don't recall. So you might have said it, but now you don't recall. Alessi says, yeah, that's it. Yep. And you went back once again to steal money after the gun. Didn't you? I did it one time, and I think that is what I told the police. And so you went through the sliding glass door, didn't you? Yeah. And you stole $5,600, didn't you? Yeah. You stole it right out of his briefcase, right? Yep. It was $100 bills, wasn't it? Yep. It was in a white envelope, and you took it, didn't you? Yes, I did. Maxwell's lawyer says, show the witness 3504-002, the deposition transcript. I move for admission under Rule 801. Or it's inconsistent statement or whatever. Maxwell, Pagliuca, you stole $6,000 when you owned properties valued at $1 million, right? I sold those properties to buy the property for a multifamily. Okay, so let's look again. Pull up 3504 and 002, deposition page 145. He's shredding into him. Asking him about his financial biases. You stole money. You had $1 million property. I sold those properties for a multifamily. Oh, you're buying a multifamily? You're this poor immigrant who is a racist victim to the Epstein and the Maxwells, people who are calling you John instead of Juan, and telling you not to look at their eyes. You've got multifamily investment properties and millions of dollar properties. What? Maxwell, according to Inner City Press, he's watching this, says during all this, Ghislaine is leaning back and even masked, seems pleased with herself. Whoa. When we first practiced to deceive, he says, ... Maxwell's lawyer says, I'm having trouble seeing it here. So they continue on. Goes forward. Maxwell's lawyer has just openly said the real name. Alert. Pagliuca drops a name. One of the names of the victims. Jane's name. In court. Nobody, of course, is going to repeat it outside of the courtroom. But we already, I think, knew who it is. And you can see here Maxwell's lawyer has just openly said the real name. Judge Nathan, not happy. Sir, you are admonished to abide by my rulings, says Judge Nathan, screaming from the bench. Prosecutors also unhappy. Judge, may we approach, Your Honor? They go up to the bench. Sidebar begins. Classfield over on the different channels said, yep. Maxwell's lawyer just said Jane's real name was admonished by Judge Nathan. I will not be repeating it here. So not good. You will be abiding by rules, Judge Nathan says. So he drops that name in front of the jurors. They know who it is now. Does that change anything? Is it a household name? Well, I suppose we'll have to decide whether or not to add her name to the mind map, shan't we? Okay, so it continues on. Returning after the sidebar, they break. Maxwell's lawyer comes back and says, all right, Mr. Alessi, you testified about when Jane, not the other name, met Mr. Epstein and Mr. Maxwell, right? So the prosecutor probably went up there and scolded him. And the judge scolded him. He comes back and he's very clear. Jane, the woman named Jane, 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 not the other name. Let's talk about her. And he says, in this testimony, I mistook the two. And so then in 2016, Jeff says, you were directed to name Jane, and you said no, didn't you? You were asked if Jane was driving, and you said you never saw Jane driving a car. Those are all questions about Jane, aren't they? Alessi says, I think so. Maxwell's lawyer says, let's take a break. Judge Nathan says, all right. So we've got Alessi now having a memory problem. Remember what the defense theme is. Money, memory, manipulation. A little bit of a memory issue. You said this, but it's not this. And you said that, but it's not that. Also money. You kind of got a lot of it. And you kind of were saying that you weren't somebody who had any nice things to say about these people, but they kind of set you up pretty well, haven't they? They kind of flew you all over the place, didn't they? Money, memory, manipulation. And now the evil victim here, or the evil perpetrator here, the villain, not the victim, the villain is the government manipulating these people. That's what the defense is arguing. This guy's not a bad guy. He's being manipulated. Jane's not a bad person. They're being manipulated. The government dropped the ball. They failed to prosecute the guy who's really in charge here, Epstein. They keep talking about him all day. About his toys, about his property, about his outfits, about his this, that, and the other. And these people are being manipulated because they failed. They take a break. They come back. Now Alessi's back on the stand. Pagliuca comes back and says, let's talk about Virginia Roberts Guffrey. Oh, Virginia Roberts Guffrey. Remember her, don't you? Well, let's go back to the mind map in case you don't, because we have her on there. And she has not really been a part of this trial thus far. So now we zoom back in here and we can see that Guffrey was a big part of the reason this all started, really, in the first place, to be perfectly honest. So she's also being represented by lawyer Sigrid McCauley. Sigrid McCauley, same attorney who is representing, as we know, is representing, I believe it's Teresa Helm. That's who it is. Yeah, the other named victim. That's who it is. So lawyer Sigrid McCauley is also representing Teresa Helm, who is now, I'm believing, a named victim. Virginia Guffrey filed this 2016 defamation lawsuit against them. She was the gal who was in this photograph with Prince Andrew. And look who's here. That's Ghislaine Maxwell. That's Virginia Guffrey. And so she sued everybody. And one of these perjury charges, actually two of the perjury charges that Ghislaine Maxwell is facing here in the indictment, those come from the deposition that took place in the 2016 defamation lawsuit. So I'm not going to open up that whole chain over there, but you can see. So this is who we're talking about now. So we now get back over to Juan Patricio Alessi. He is now talking about this woman here. Let's go back to it. All right. Says, I'm asking you about what Alessi said. Talking to a specific document, right? He's trying to refresh his recollection. Go to that document. Tell me, start reading from it. Prosecutor stands up. No, we want you to read the whole thing. Okay. Don't read just that paragraph. What defense attorney, what actually all attorneys do is I'm going to refresh your recollection, or can I turn your attention to this page? Third paragraph down, second sentence. Can you read that for me there? The defense is trying to do that. They gave him a document and said, hey, read that right here. Prosecutor says, no. Read the whole thing. Like the whole thing, start from the top. So they started that, and he does. Maxwell says, okay, so you say summer, I remember. I was sweating like hell in the car. I was waiting for Miss Maxwell to come out of the car, and he's just reading the whole thing. So Inner City Press tells us, this is going to be a while. Maxwell's lawyer, Pagliuca. Mr. Alessi, didn't you keep a Rolodex of the girls? See how he did that? A Rolodex of the girls? You kind of kept one of those, didn't you? He says, no, of the massage therapists. You got referrals for a massage therapist there, Alessi? No, sir. No, sir, I didn't get any referrals. Of course not. You said that one of Jeffrey Epstein's friends would say, I got a good massage, and you'd say, please give me the answer. Alessi says, I never. And you previously said this under oath, didn't you? May I continue, Your Honor? May I continue down this line of questioning? What am I going to do? I'm going to impeach him with the prior statement. I'm going to say that he said under oath during a prior conversation, some other prior legal proceeding, I said this. He gave a statement. Now it's changing a little bit. You got referrals for a massage therapist, didn't you? No, I didn't. Oh. Well, let me walk you back through what I know. You said on one of Jeffrey Epstein's to one of his friends that when you got a good massage, you'd say, give me the number, give me their answer. Who is that? He continues. So isn't it true then that Mr. Epstein brought other women to the house and told you to remove pictures of Miss Maxwell from the house? Didn't he do that? Epstein told you, get rid of the Maxwell photos out of here? Alessi says, I did what he told me to do. Why did you think that you were taking Maxwell's picture down when Epstein had the other women over? Why'd you pull those pictures down when those other girls were coming? Why? Alessi says, I have no idea. Interesting. Okay, so Mr. Alessi then, so you had Maxwell coming over, you'd pull down the pictures of Maxwell, you'd put them up when Maxwell would come over, then when Maxwell would leave and other girls would come over, you would take Miss Maxwell's pictures down, and then when they left, you put them back up, right? Yeah, all that. Okay. At Mr. Epstein's direction, you called the women and you set up the massages also, didn't you? Yes, I did. And Maxwell's lawyer drops one here and says, and that doesn't make you guilty of trafficking, does it? Prosecutor flips out. Objection! You can't say that. And that doesn't make you guilty of trafficking, does it? And you see what the prosecutor is trying to do here. Objection is obviously sustained. Pagliuca asks Alessi, did you ever arrange any of those professional massages? Doesn't make you a trafficker. Objection sustained. So he's going pretty hard at him. He's going, aggressive. He's throwing blows at him. He's saying, hey, wait a minute. So you saw all this. You cleaned everything up. You put the pictures up. You took the pictures down. You had all sorts of property. You were setting these things up. You had referrals. You put the phone book. You knew exactly what was going on. You were involved in all of it. You were there for 12 years. Multiple different buildings. And you didn't do anything about it. In fact, you were kind of enabling. It kind of sounds like you might have been a participant, a party to it all. Maybe you're a part of the conspiracy. Maybe you're guilty of this, aren't you? Objection. Rightfully so. It carries on. It says, and when you cleaned the massage room, you would have saw signs of violence, wouldn't you, Mr. Alessi? Right? No one complained to you about any violence, right? Alessi says with his voice rising, no, but I wish they had. I would have done something about it. And there's some laughter in the courtroom, according to Inner City Press. Look at that. And when you cleaned that massage room, you would have seen signs of violence, wouldn't you? And you would have complained about that. No. No one complained to you about that. No, but I wish they would have. I would have done something about it. People laugh in the courtroom. I'm just reading speech unleashed over on locals, giving me grief about going hard at him and throwing blows at him, which is not maybe, ideal. But you can see people are laughing. Why are they laughing? Why are they laughing at him? He says, I wish somebody would have complained to me. I would have done something about it. People in the courtroom laugh. Why? Why might that be? Well, maybe because people are sort of going, they're scoffing at, they're going, damn right. I'm sure you would have. If somebody would have come to you and complained about this, I'm sure you would have, and you would have been right to do it. If somebody would have come to you and said, I'm afraid of violence, you would have stood up and you said, enough already, and you would have turned them in, wouldn't you? So they're going, yeah. If somebody came, I believe that. If somebody came to you in this situation with acts of, I believe that, certainly. Or is it the opposite of that? Are they scoffing at this guy because they're like, yeah, right. What are you going to do about it? He says, no, but I wish they had. I would have done something about it. People start snickering under their breath. They're laughing at him. Okay, buddy. You're going to do something about this to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? Look at you. You're not going to do anything about it. Are they laughing at him? Are they saying, we don't believe you? This is a joke. You're raising your voice like you would have done something about it? Give me a break. So Inner City Press says, as Alessi ends, some may not believe his statements that he didn't know. Said that a few times. Or especially the claim near the end of cross-examination that if only the victim had complained, he would have acted. Some, it seems, found that laughable. Discreetly. If only the victim had complained, he would have acted. Oh, maybe it's another way. Maybe it's that he knew exactly what was going on. And this fake line in the sand that he's created is a joke to everybody in there. You would have said something about this if they complained? Yeah, right. You saw enough. You saw a whole parade of horribles out there every stinking day, and you didn't do anything about it. And if somebody would have come up and said, excuse me, John, got a problem here, you would have suddenly sprung into action like Superman and saved them? Yeah, right. That's laughable. It's not a real good position to be if you're a witness in a case. For people to say, you're a joke. You watched this go on under your nose for 12 years, and you were a part of it every step of the way. Now, something very interesting happened here. Prosecutor comes out. No redirect examination. Now, remember what happens here. Direct exam, government comes out, they call Juan first, they ask him questions. Maureen Comey did that. Jeff Pagliuca comes out. He's the defense attorney. As I said, throwing blows at this guy. He's hitting him with everything he's got. You don't remember anything. You participated in all of this. You're a beneficiary of all this. And you're kind of a liar, too. They called you Juan when it was appropriate. They called you your real name when they were speaking your native tongue there, buddy boy. Don't come out here and flip it all around now. And if you have a witness who's yours and somebody comes out and starts beating them on the head, typically what you want to do is do what's called a redirect and revitalize them, nourish them, rehabilitate them, bring them back to life. All those little problems, all those little slices that Pagliuca put into your witness testimony, you want to go in there and sew those puppies up, bandage over those things, duct tape it, around we go. So that the juries go, oh, okay, those little twinges of lacking of credibility that we saw, we're going to just paper over those things. But guess what happened here? Maureen Comey, nobody from the government came out and did a redirect. Nothing happened there. Interesting. Now, we saw what happened here. This is a different take on this. Pagliuca asked whether he ever heard of someone looking afraid or screaming. No, never heard anything, says Juan. Ever see anybody hurt or injured? No. Anyone ever complained? No, I wish they would have. I would have done something. Nobody ever complained. When you were working for Mr. Epstein, you didn't have any doubt that the girls who were provided for massages were not of the proper age, right? Prosecutor objects. Form. It's a complicated question, kind of a badly worded question. Ask it again. He does. Mr. Alessi, here today in court. Did you believe the people sent to perform sessions on Epstein were quote, of age? Yes or no? Alessi responds, I believed so. Okay, there you go. So no redirect examination. Prosecutor Comey comes back out. Nothing. We jump right into the next witness. And so, as I've said before, as we've been covering this, I read these things one way, but I'm not there. And we're missing a whole bunch of meatballs in this meal. There was something else that took place here that we sort of glossed over, but it was some of the language barrier stuff that was happening. And there was a reason why there was no redirect. There was a reason why the prosecutor didn't come out here and go back to try to rehabilitate Mr. Alessi. To share that with you, I want to welcome Joe Neerman. Good Logic over on YouTube. He's there, boots on the ground, outside the Thurgood Marshall Courthouse in New York City. He's got an update for us. He's going to give us a briefing on what he was experiencing when he was in there watching all of this in real time. And the cross-examination that we just read through, that looked like it was pretty aggressive, may have come off a little bit differently, because that's what happens. It's about body language. It's about presentation. It's more than just the transcript. Here's what Joe saw today. Be sure to follow him. His link is down in the description wherever you're watching this. He has an awesome channel. He's putting in a lot of hard work going there every single day to court. So make sure you give him a follow. And it's important. If you're interested in this case, you're not going to get the full picture unless you're checking out his channel and listening to other people who are actually there in the courtroom. So here is Joe. Thank you, Joe, for submitting this over to us so we can enjoy it today.
Hey, Robert. You know it's a telltale sign that the defense is having a rough go of it? It's when they spend 3 hours cross-examining a witness who painted their client as Cruella de Vil. And by the time they're finished and they sit down, the judge looks over at the prosecution and says to them, redirect? And the government stands up and says, no questions, Your Honor. That's how you know that you didn't make much headway that's of concern to the prosecution. And I have to say, I agree with the prosecution. It was 3 hours of cross-examination, but it seemed as if the defense was trying to take advantage of the fact that Mr. Alessi is not a native English speaker. So, for example, they would read back from a prior deposition where he made a statement to the effect of, I call girls for Mr. Epstein. And they tried to portray it saying that this is showing that he's going out there recruiting women for Epstein. And that's not Ghislaine Maxwell who's doing it, but that he's doing it. And when you phrase it like that to a native English speaker, it does sound like he's going out and recruiting. But when they ask him the question, he responds with, I call whoever Mr. Epstein say to call. He tells me call, I call. And you understand very quickly that what he said, the actual words that are written in the transcript, are words that probably would not be chosen by a native English speaker, but that because English is not his native language, it's his second language, so he's wording it very inartfully. And that the defense is trying to take advantage of the actual written words on the transcript. But anybody who's actually listening to him speak understands his intent and his meaning, and all that comes across as the defense is really just trying to find ways to make him look bad in ways that are illegitimate and not really reflective of what he's trying to say. So all in all, it didn't really seem to play very well for the defense at all, anytime this morning.
Interesting, right? So a little bit different take, a little bit different read. If I'm reading it, I'm taking a look at this, I'm saying, man, he's kind of getting beaten up a little bit here. But Joe's watching it, and one of those things that you can't really read in a transcript is that battle over the language barrier. You know, and this guy is not from here. I think he's from Quito, Ecuador. He's been here for a long time, but apparently, you know, he still has a little bit of a language barrier there. And so what the defense was trying to do is take this old deposition and sort of compare and contrast that with his testimony in court. You said here today this, didn't you? Yeah. But that's not what you said in 2019, is it? I don't know. What did I say? And they say, well, we have a deposition. We have the transcript here, and we're going to make you look like a fool. We're going to impeach you with this document because you're a liar and you're saying something differently. So they bring it out and they read it, and it kind of sounds differently, right? We kind of read it on Twitter, read through some of it. You go, oh, well, yeah, I mean, it kind of does sound, he kind of was setting these things up, and he was doing this, and he was doing that, and he was sort of participating, and he was doing all of those things that I was detailing earlier that would have made him a party to all of this. Which is what prompted the question from Jeff, aren't you guilty of this too then? You were there every step of the way. You were his housekeeper. You were setting all this stuff up. But now we have a different interpretation of this. It was a language barrier. It's not he's a liar. It's that they're just mincing words over English words that this guy just doesn't really understand. And when he's trying to explain it in court, it's pretty clear to the people who are watching it that he's not lying. He's not faking any of this. He's just not proficient in English. And so for the defense to be people who are saying, who are kind of beating up on this immigrant, to be beating up on this guy who's just, this poor housekeeper. And it's so you're a liar too, right? It kind of comes off as condescending. It comes off as rude. It's punching down. It's punching below your weight. And maybe that doesn't sit well with the jurors. Now, we don't know much about the jurors. Again, we don't know what the demographics are. Would be nice to know. Any Hispanic people on there? Any people from Ecuador? From Southern America? From South America? From south of the United States in general? Maybe that might have an impact. It might land differently for those people. Or is it a bunch of Hollywood, DC, liberal, white Epstein golfing buddies? Then they don't care about that. They'd say, yeah, I'd call you John too there, Juan. So amazing update. Joe Neerman, Good Logic on YouTube. He's tagged down in the description. He's doing awesome work. I love that he's there. Super cool. So thank you, Joe. Very much appreciated. Everybody, do not forget to go and subscribe over to his channel. So we know now there was no redirect exam of Mr. Alessi. They felt pretty good about it. So we move on. The next witness in Ghislaine Maxwell, trial day 5, is Gregory Parkinson. You can see Maureen Comey is going to be doing the direct examination again. They're talking about searches of Epstein's home. So first, they're going to go through his credential and his career. Now, I couldn't find much about this guy at first, but then came the floodgates. Now, I think this is who this guy is. So recall that we're talking about Gregory Parkinson. He is doing a search of Epstein's home. We learned that he's a police officer, or was a police officer. We learned that he's a crime scene manager at the Palm Beach Police Department. So we've got that going for us. We identify this on LinkedIn. We've got experience from 2013 all the way to present. He went to Nova Southern University, got his general government delivery degree, Federal Bureau of an FBI National Academy. He went back there in the 1980s. Looks like for maybe a year or a semester over there. Constitutional law, physical science, all that stuff. So some of his credentials. I think it's this guy. Pretty sure, about 95% sure it's this guy who is the actual witness who testified today. You can see this from a May 2018 photograph. We have retired Lieutenant Greg Parkinson, also with the West Palm Beach Police Department. Lieutenant Greg Parkinson. And then if you zoom in a little bit, you're going to find this article over from Palm Beach Magazine. And he wrote this. This was published back in December of 2007. Very, very nice photo. Looks like a very nice man. Says, what I love about the job, as police officer, what I love most is the opportunity to serve our community. Well, that's beautiful there, Greg. And you talk a lot about this. For all the crime scene investigation on the show, he's done this. Let's see. DNA testing he's done. 4-decade career over West Palm Beach. Began his unit more than 50 years ago. Now, this is why I think it's the same guy. So West Palm Beach, let's see. He attended the FBI National Academy in 1989. See that? So that matches with this LinkedIn profile. So I'm pretty sure it's the same guy. And so we got his photograph, and we know about him, right? So he's got a lot of background here. 13,000 case investigations. He serves as a sergeant at arms for the International Association of Identification. Distinguished member. crime scene investigator. So the guy's, he's been around forever. Highly, highly qualified. And he even looks like Schrader from Breaking Bad. So you kind of know he's probably a pretty cool guy. Probably collects gemstones. So, all right, so that's the next guy who's testifying. We know Maureen Comey, prosecutor James Comey's daughter, is going to be leading up the direct examination. Here's how that starts. So Comey's like, well, tell us about what you do. We already know about that. We went through all of his records, highly, highly credentialed. How were you involved in this case? Well, I was somebody who participated in a search in Palm Beach. Maureen says, well, what is this? Oh, it's a map. It's an aerial view. And had you been there before? Yeah, I went there on a report of theft of currency. Somebody stole money. I met Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, okay. So this guy's been around a while, back when he was alive. Now, before it gets into what was found during the search, we go to lunch. This is where the transition happens this sort of afternoon, where they set up that AV process, audio-visual setup screens where only the jurors can see. So we talked about that earlier this morning, and now by this afternoon, we get over to that. There is a press conference at the Southern District, so they switch over. The SDNY is talking about another case, so they swapped over. Adam Classfield now gives us his rundown of this. They put a red dot right in the middle of a map of Palm Beach. And so this is how they're sort of zooming in on this. You're familiar with Palm Beach, yeah? Put a red dot in the middle of it. That's a El Brio property. He gives jurors the lay of the land. Then we go over to Epstein's property, 358 El Brio Way. Describes the search. Search took place October 20th, 2005. So long time ago, everybody. He went into various rooms. First, the garden room. That was on the south side. He passed into it. He went into the lake room, which was like an office and a library. He also walked into the kitchen area and so forth. They took their break. Afternoon session comes back. Parkinson is viewing now, and he's being questioned about a video walkthrough of the Palm Beach residence. So he's sort of, guiding everybody through it. This is this room. This is this room. We get to a photograph now that shows Pope John Paul with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, so he's walking people through sort of a video tour of Epstein's residence. Oh, there's Pope John Paul with Jeffrey Epstein. This is a picture of Fidel Castro with Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, this video is not public. It turns to the second floor. We go to the second floor. This is the photograph of the Pope that we're talking about before we get to the second floor. Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and the Pope. Two of the most allegedly evil people on the planet, hanging out with one of the most allegedly holy people on the planet. And I'm a Catholic, so not a good look. Inner City Press says that they're showing videos of the jurors. The press and the public cannot see it. They go to minute 3. Where are we? Now they're in the 3-car garage. What do we see here? It's that same photo. Comey continues. She's telling the jurors to look at exhibit after exhibit. One right after the other. They get all the way up to exhibit 225. And Inner City Press is saying everything is sealed. Can't see any of this. Every single one of these stinking exhibits is not available. One might even say this is a semi-public trial, he says. Then we get to Exhibit 234. Comey's still rolling on here, where we go from 225, 226, 227, 220. We live in America. We're supposed to, this is a public trial. 228, 229, okay, all the way up to 234. Also, 241, under seal. Judge Nathan granted, under seal, under seal, under seal. It keeps going. Finally, Inner City Press says, we're getting a little bit of activity here. What's this one? It's Exhibit 228. It's the garden room. Now, these photos, says Inner City Press, photos are spread all over the floor, but nobody can see what they're talking about. Photos are everywhere. They're just like dropping them on the floor. Prosecutor says, I'd like the jurors to look at your binders now. Go over to Exhibit 255 now. You can choose dozens of exhibits. Oh, witnesses only. Okay, not the jurors. Witnesses only. I asked the government, Exhibit 278, the master bathroom, be under seal to protect privacy. The master bathroom under seal to protect privacy. What? What's in the bathroom that we can't see? Who's in there? Judge says, all right, let's take our break. Snacks are here. Hot Pockets are ready. Go get them. Get your lemonade too, you kids. So they go on a break. They're hungry. They eat. They come back. Adam Classfield tells us the same story leading up to the break. Witness just concluded. 3 different witnesses. These are all being displayed. We have the view from the garden standing at the north. Jurors are being asked to privately view another exhibit. Then we get the afternoon recess. He tells us most of this testimony is going to be visual, including sealed exhibits. Live tweets are going to be sporadic. So the judge comes back. We get a little bit of pushback from the judge. Judge Nathan is now saying, all right, U.S. government, you've been sealing basically everything here, kind of getting tired of it. U.S. has gone a little bit too far. You've got a 39-minute video here, 39 minutes that you want to play, and I think we should make at least some portion of this available to the public. It's a 39-minute. We can't seal the whole thing, can we? Comey says, okay, hold on a minute. We're going to work on that, so we'll see when that video comes out. Classfield reports, Nathan said, Judge Nathan says, I don't see why a public version can't be made in redacted form to protect the privacy of, quote, a few individuals. So I'm not sure who we're talking about in this 39-minute video. But Maxwell's lawyer, Bobby Sternheim, then, she gets up, she tells the judge that sealing a 40-minute video conveys to the public that the house is a domicile of debauchery. Only a couple images in the video were at issue, she said. So Bobby Sternheim says, look, Judge, if you seal this whole thing, if you seal 40 minutes from the public, they're going to think this was like on one of those, XXX websites or something. They're going to think that they're walking around the Playboy Mansion. That it's just nothing but debauchery and disgustingness, which, depending on your definitions, it might already meet that category. But here, apparently, the full 39-minute video is not even a problem. It's only a couple, maybe a minute, who knows. A couple images, says Bobby Sternheim. The rest of it can be made public, and she wants it to be made public. It's not 39 minutes of disgusting pornography. It's all pretty much bland, except for a couple little torpedoes here and there. So they're fighting about it. The prosecutor wants to seal everything. Thus far, the court has been inclined to grant that. So they have a little bit of a battle, a back and forth over some of these issues and about some of these things that are being revealed. And so we're going to do a quick detour. We're going to go check out what The Guardian has to say about this, because there's something interesting that's happening, I think, in this case. Some people are getting some information that other people are not getting. And in this afternoon, what we had was, what I think is happening is some people are actually physically in the courtroom. And some information from people physically in the courtroom is leaking out, and we're getting some more details that people who are not physically in the courtroom, people who are in the media overflow room, are not getting. So in this case, you've got guys like Joe. I actually don't know where Joe is, but you've got other guys, I think, that are in the media rooms, the overflow rooms, that are not in the actual courtroom. And so when they shut off the screens for them, they're all in the dark, really. They don't get to see what else is happening. Only the people in the physical courtroom, not the media overflow room, can actually see what's going on there. So we can fill in some of the gaps here from The Guardian, who I think were there, actually in the room. Or they got this information somewhere else. I'm not sure how they got it, but they're reporting on this. They say that during this time, when we have all this sealing and closing off, that when we have that afternoon of darkness, Adam Classfield is sort of talking about, tweets are going to be sporadic out there. This is why they're arguing and showing this stuff. They're fighting over all of this. They're talking about a suggestive photograph of a very young girl. It's being displayed outside Epstein's bedroom at his mansion. Okay, it's a photograph in a not good position of a very young girl. That's what they talked about on Friday. Obviously, that's why they can't broadcast it. They also talk about these, quote, schoolgirl costumes that were recovered during a search of Epstein's home. Fighting over that. The information emerged when the prosecution and the defense argued about several photos that might be presented as evidence in Maxwell's court case. Images discussed on Friday were recovered during searches of the various residents. One depicted a young girl pulling down her underwear, exposing her rear. An image depicted a young girl on Epstein's lap. Okay, you can see why the defense is very interested in making sure none of this stuff comes in. Now, again, this is the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, not the Jeffrey Epstein trial. So they're going to be making those arguments. But these photos are, horrible. Young girl pulling down her underwear, and all this stuff. Like, he has these posted up around his residence. Yeah, not good. Prosecution said that one of the photos is, quote, is the primary decoration. One of those photos is the primary decoration outside the master bedroom that Maxwell shared with Epstein. See that? Where did that testimony get corroborated? Juan Alessi. Juan Alessi said they slept together all the time. They slept in the same room very frequently. So the primary decoration outside the master that Maxwell went into every single night had photos like that. So she must know something about this. Prosecution said in order to get into that room, you've got to get by that photo. The fact that it's there of a clearly underage female is highly probative. Okay, it shows that there's a lot here. It gives the jurors something to use. Now, again, this is the Ghislaine Maxwell case, so they're making this connection just saying that she walked by it. The defense is going to say it's not her house, not her photo, not her property. She's not interested in any of that. They're saying that this is going to show that she wants to go abuse young people. Prosecution also revealed that the schoolgirl costumes were recovered. They were found when law enforcement went and searched Epstein's New York City home back in 2019. The outfits were, quote, small ones found in the same room where an underage girl says she was abused. Certainly relevant, they say. This all came before Juan Alessi resumed his testimony. This discussion took place before, that all took place this morning. That's what they were fighting about. But they're still fighting about it during the break. Were those documents, were those photographs admitted? We come back after a snack break. Jurors are back, hot pockets in their bellies. They're doing well. Comey says, all right, we're back. We're going to Exhibit 278. It's a bathroom now. Mr. Parkinson, Palm Beach Police detective, talking about photos. He's walking around Epstein's property. He's got a video camcorder. He's making photographs. We see photos of underage individuals outside the master bedroom. We take a break. They fight over it. They come back from the break. Comey comes in. All right, we're going back to Exhibit 278 there, Mr. Parkinson. Let's talk about the bathroom now. It's a bathroom. It's got a phone. It's got a pink, it's pink, has a 3-cushion couch, okay? And that there is an inflatable massage table. Jurors, according to Classfield, go through those photos. Some of those photos are sealed, so we're not going to see them. And then, surprisingly, Classfield tells us that Epstein's actual green massage table was brought into the courtroom and shown to the jury. So they actually hauled in the entire massage table into court, and they just set it up there. A corresponding photograph of the sticker underneath it shows it was made in the USA. God bless America. So they actually hauled in an entire massage table, which is curious. It carries on. Now we go back, Inner City Press says, to the mass sealing. Exhibit 285, Comey says, under seal. And I direct the jurors' attention to that writing. So we don't know what's on the writing. But then we come back out. Parkinson comes out of the witness box. He walks up to Government Exhibit 51, the green massage table. Identifies it, marks it as evidence. Maureen Comey says, we offer this massage table into evidence. What? The whole thing? Okay. I asked that the exhibit be published to the jury by setting the table up. So they prop that puppy up. Now the table is in the open position, says Parkinson. Exhibit 51A is a photo of the massage table on its side. Where was it manufactured? Vista, California. No further questions. Now, Mr. Everdell, for Ghislaine Maxwell, her defense attorney, is up. Cross-examination starts. We've got Everdell now in the house. You see him over here leading cross. Okay there, Mr. Parkinson. You said that you went over to Epstein's place. You previously investigated a burglary there, right? That's right. And Mr. Epstein said that several $1,000s had been stolen. Is that also right? Yeah, that's true. Inner City Press says Everdell's just jumping all over the place with this question. He's laughing uncomfortably now. What? He asked Parkinson about an exhibit sealed that is Epstein's desk and the photos on it. And with that, without apparently landing a punch, Everdell's cross-examination is over. Well, that's kind of weird. Judge Nathan says, yeah, you may step down, Mr. Parkinson. You're free to take your flight. Get on out of here. Have a great weekend. Okay, so that seems less than climactic. Then we get a different take from Adam Classfield. Here's how Christian Everdell left it according to his take. Says, Maxwell's counsel asked Parkinson, any knowledge about Ghislaine Maxwell? You don't know who Ghislaine Maxwell is, do you? No, I do not. And then he concludes, witness is excused. So now we have Everdell. Don't know what he was doing with the rest of the cross-examination. Don't get much details about it from Classfield or from Intercity. But Intercity says it sounds like he was kind of floundering all around all over the place. So we'll have to see what that's all about. We wrap up with our final witness of the day. 4:38 on a Friday. Michael Dawson, Palm Beach Police Department. Oh my goodness, the judge is going to make him start? It's Friday, Judge. It's almost Christmas. Can we go home? The answer is no. Michael Dawson is coming up. He's got a whopping 22 minutes to testify, and he comes in and does. Couldn't find a photograph of this guy, but I think that this is him. I think he's over here from the town of Palm Beach. Looks like back November 2014, he was the Officer of the Month. Congratulations to Sergeant Michael Dawson. Dear sir, based on your expeditious response and leadership, you've been nominated and named by the awards committee as the Officer of the Month for November 2014. What did he do? On Wednesday, November 5th, Palm Beach police units, they were alerted to a shoplifting in progress. White male wearing a white t-shirt and shorts took a designer handbag for almost $2,000. Left the store, didn't even pay for them. Sergeant Michael Dawson was not going to let that stand. He responded to the area as a witness to the theft, followed the suspect on foot. As the suspect became aware he was being followed, he threw the purse, began to flee. He located him, ordered him to stop. He refused, and you grabbed his arm. Even though he attempted to pull away and break your grasp, you were able to secure the suspect to the ground, and you got him in custody. Oh, my goodness. This story has a happy ending. The handbag was later recovered, and it was returned to the store. You continued to supervise the entirety of the investigation, and he was charged with grand theft and resisting arrest without violence. Yes, well done there, Sergeant Michael Dawson. Justice, love it. All right, so this is how testimony started with him. Prosecutor says, what were you doing in that house there, Mr. Dawson? We just heard from Mr. Parkinson. Now you're going in there. What were you looking for there, sir? He says, well, massage tables and oils. Had a mission. Was also looking for some toys. There were a lot of photos of other females around there in the bear. We seized a phone. We seized a book. We seized a massage table, kind of like the one you're looking at over there. We also found a photo of another uncovered female. We saw a toy in a cylindrical vibrating shape called the Torpedo. There it is, folks. Flashes on the screen and is gone. The Torpedo is in business. Oh my gosh, the Torpedo. Now, we also see here, cross-examination starts right at 4:49. I'm going to prove up an inconsistent statement. Judge Nathan asked them to talk about it first. They talk about Juan Alessi's admission to stealing from Epstein. And cross-examination stops at 4:59 p.m. We're done for the week. That's it. Now, we're noticing the judge gives us a scheduling thing. Says not having any court the 13th, the 14th, or the 15th, which is certainly news to me. So that's going to be the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, not next week, but the following week, which is interesting. I don't know what that's all about, but may have a scheduling thing. Some letters are going to be due Saturday and Sunday, both by 8 p.m. So we've got Jeffrey Epstein now, the subject of this trial still. And apparently, he's a big fan of the Torpedo that Detective Dawson had to find, that Juan Alessi had to clean, that a lot of underage people might have had to use. We're going to find out. We're going to see more what trial day 6 holds on Monday. And we hope that you join us as we continue to follow the Ghislaine Maxwell trial to its ultimate conclusion. We're going to continue to follow it along, and I want to hear from you. What do you have to say about it? Let's take a look at some of these super chats and messages and questions from our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's see who we've got first in the house today. We have Vienticus says, have you ever cried in the courtroom saying that a judge lunged at you like Smollett's lawyer has? Just want to get a good comparison about good and bad defense attorneys. I've never been lunged at by a judge before. No. I'm going to guess that lawyer hasn't either. Spawn Dog says, Rob, this is a dog and pony show for sure. The real criminals are those that participate in this disgusting behavior. Those elites who seem to get away with anything. They're the ones on trial here who will, in my humble opinion, never face criminal charges. I could only imagine your frustration as well as mine that they will never be held accountable for their behavior. Let's be honest that's why this case has drawn so much attention, but we will never have an ending to this saga. That's from Spawn Dog, and I appreciate that there, Spawn Dog. It's why I'm interested also. Yeah, I'd like to see the scope of this thing expand gratuitously. We got Marza Pana with no question, but a nice donation and super chat. Thank you, Marza. We have Alex Pipkin in the house. Says, thanks for the information. And the first time I've enjoyed giving money to a lawyer. Well, that's a nice first there, Alex. I'm glad to be that. I'm glad to be somebody that's a lawyer. Although it's not really for legal services, so you kind of have an out there. The next time you pay a lawyer for legal services, I'm sure you're not going to be happy about it. So sleep well tonight knowing that that's not going to change. But I appreciate your support. Okay, we've got Mandy with, no super. Oh, yeah, there it says Robert with hearts and I think peaches. Are those peaches? Peaches and hearts. Well, thank you, Mandy. I appreciate that. And those were over from YouTube. Let's go back to locals. We've got English Dave says, what's your favorite cheese? Mine's Maturate cheddar. Haha. Love you, Rob, you big oaf. What? Mine's Maturate cheddar. Love you, Rob, you big oaf. Nobody's ever called me a big oaf before because I'm not that big. But okay, I'll take it. I mean, I can take it. I like it. Oh, it's funny. CPO Forever says, George McNair's here, says, off topic, lots of election happenings in Wisconsin. Gableman hires an investigator. We've got Wisconsin Republicans threaten the jail's mayor of Green Bay. Oh, I'm going to have to take a look at those, CPO Forever. See if anything good happens there. Monster One says, you think the giant plastic cucumber was for Epstein? Maybe he liked massages up the rear area. How do you say that nicely? Monster One says, the House manual had a section about grooming. Is that the smoking gun? It was the 5 stages. Did you see that? It was literally Dr. Rocchio's. First of all, identify schools. Second of all, I don't think that's what they were talking about in the manual. Vienticus says, one way not to trigger YouTube censors might to actually be to use what is more actually appropriate terminology. Look up the words hebephile and ephebephile. I'd rather just use, rockets and cucumbers and all of that stuff. But I understand what you're saying, Vienticus. Thank you for the suggestion. Speech says, I know your time has already stretched this, but given YouTube's increasing censoring, perhaps you should consider using locals to post your vids and analysis on things that YouTube doesn't allow. Hate that you're forced to censor yourself everywhere because your main streaming outlet is still YouTube. So, Speech, you're going to run into the same problems anywhere. So I think that if you're trying to make content that is monetizable, that sort of spreads and reaches the masses, you're going to have to censor it kind of wherever you go. And I'm not really censoring what I'm saying or my opinions here. I'm censoring the language that I'm using. So I'm not saying certain words because I'm 99.9% sure that all of this is just done by algorithms and it's just picking up words and phrases. So the message is not really being, I think, diluted. It's just the way that the message is being conveyed. And I think that, I'm okay making that concession in order to balance all of the various competing interests. But yes, I've absolutely thought about, and if you notice, the show is kind of changing a little bit, right? We're talking about sort of one topic at a time so that we can talk about other topics offline on locals. Now, we'll talk about that on locals. I've got sort of a locals update. I had a monthly meetup, not a monthly meetup. I had a creators call about 2 weeks ago with locals, and I've been sort of watching some changes happening on the platform, and I'm curious to see where it goes. They've merged with Rumble. They're now on, I think, the NASDAQ or something. So I think all good stuff, but there's going to be some technological changes that roll out early next year, and I'm looking forward to it. So we've got Spawn Dog here. Says, Rob, a little off topic, but I know what it's like to be a pawn in this game of chess. Long story short, I was attacked by a lunatic leaving a gym. Let me see. Is this a... I want to make sure this is not like an actual legal question. If he felt threatened. Okay, Spawn Dog, this is about like a personal legal situation, so I'm not going to read this on the air, but I will take a look at it and then read this myself, and then if it's... And then maybe we can talk about it on locals. But because it's sort of your personal situation, I'm not comfortable reading it. Even though you may be intending me to read it, I'm not positive about it, so I'm just going to skip over that. CSI team, the CSI team's black light. Oh, God, that poor light. Says, oh, please, God, don't make me relive this. You have no idea how many nights I've lost sleep over this. It was one horror show. When they turned me on, it looked like a modern art piece. There were colors everywhere. At one point, they dropped me. I still feel tainted. All right, that was from the CSI Blacklight, which that poor thing, you know. Juan Halgren, not John, Juan is here, says, Ghislaine found her niche, found a man with a wretched lifestyle that she could exploit for her own benefit. That manual was written by a sociopath. Epstein wasn't the mastermind, Maxwell was. If the prosecution doesn't push this, it will be easy to keep blaming Epstein's perversions and paint Maxwell as yet another victim. FYI, our family manual has one sentence: don't burn down the house. That's a pretty important one. I mean, if you forget that one, the rest of the manual doesn't really matter. Put the Q-tips on the left side of the second drawer. It's irrelevant if the house is smoldering ashes. So, very smart there, Juan. Very smart. I was going to try to come up with a Hispanic name for Heather, but I couldn't think of one. And so I was thinking, like, I'm not even going to say it because I'll feel like an idiot. Thunder7 says, as soon as I heard the judge was an Obama appointee recently promoted by Biden Schumer days before the trial began and that Comey's daughter was the lead prosecutor, I knew the trial wasn't going to be a sham. It's going really light on Maxwell and trying to put the blame onto Trump. There's no justice in Southern District of New York. Maxwell may be given a very light sentence in exchange for keeping quiet about the Clintons and the elites. However, the evidence proves that Bill Clinton flew on Lolita Express 27 times. White House proves Epstein visited Clinton over 17 times. Trump actually warned people about Epstein decades ago. You know, I kind of thought that, Thunder7. I thought that he said something like, he likes him really young or something like that. Wasn't he kind of saying something like that? But there are a bunch of photos of him, clearly, with him. Kincaid says, Rob, I'm guessing the following questions will be silly. However, given the nature and the scope of this case, couldn't the DOJ have assigned some form of special prosecution? Yeah, I mean, they could have. I guess you're saying because there's a bias between Epstein and some of the public figures that exists. It just seems like money and time may change hands, but the fates won't rear their heads to those deserving. Lastly, if some substantial implications were leaked against a public figure, would petitions or other public actions be useful? I mean, maybe they might spawn a prosecutor to file charges, but I mean, it's ultimately a prosecutor's decision. You know, somebody needs to prosecute the case, and the public really doesn't have that choice outside of an elected official, a prosecutor, or county attorney to do it. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. You too. Off topic. There might be a good conversation at some point. Both CEOs of Google and Twitter are foreign raised, suggesting their knowledge and appreciation of the First Amendment and the Constitution in general is lacking. Is this a scary thought, or am I overthinking it? I don't know, Kincaid. I don't know enough about either of those two gentlemen to make a strong conclusion on that, but it is interesting. Monster1 says, what the hell is wrong with Juan? You're in a billionaire's house and all you steal is a measly $6,500? Got to step your game up. And the fact that he got caught, he's like putting $100 bills in their like glove compartments. Can't you just take one or two of those like every day and just, siphon them off the top? Not a great criminal. Leafy Bug says, Rob, haven't been able to watch the show live. Been catching up later, though. Want to say thanks for the excellent job you're doing summarizing these proceedings. Commentary is characteristically droll and often makes me chuckle. I wonder if the jury is getting sick of Hot Pockets yet. How many snack breaks do these people need? The jury eating schedule reminds me of those conferences where you get massively overfed. What happens if a jury member, stuffed full of government sandwiches or microwave snack food items, nods off during trial? Or what happened if they, if they have a little bellyache going on here? Do one of the lawyers point them out? Given that, does the judge wake them up? Yeah. I mean, everybody's watching that, and sort of, nudging the judge. Look at the jurors. Everybody's keeping an eye on that. Given what we've seen in trials recently, it could be quite frightening. Imagine being woken up from a doze by an elbow to the ribs to find Binger pointing an AR-15 at you. Yeah, that's a little scary. There's no doubt about that. Thomas Bingy Binger. Wonder how he's doing over there in Kenosha, Wisconsin. We've got Kincaid says, when you mentioned the 3 M's, all I could think of was a really effed up version of Poker Face by Lady Gaga. Art reflects life after all, from Kincaid. We've got Miss Danny says, hey, Robert, hope you are happy today. You reached 6,000 viewers on YouTube. Kudos, my friend. Keep on. Your program won't ever be banned from YouTube. They can't. Best for you. From Danny. Well, thank you, Danny. Yeah, very nice. People are very interested in Maxwell. I'm honored and humbled that people tune in to hang out as we mosey on through some of the news of the day. It's a lot of fun. I'm learning a lot. I'm sort of excited about this this mind map. I'm having a lot of fun, like, filling it out, almost like obsessively a little bit. It's like, ooh, that's a new fact. Where can I put that in the mind map? So that's going to be a lot of fun for me to basically obsess over until January of 2022. Glad you're enjoying it. Call, according to Miss Danny, is llamar in Spanish. It means mostly, quote, to phone someone or to call from a distance or to come nearby. Just for the audience who don't speak Spanish, hugs, Robert, from Uruguay. Thank you, Miss Danny. Thanks for being here from Uruguay. And, oh, my goodness, which reminds me, got an amazing gift from Greg Marat, from our friend over in Australia. He sent me this very nice Christmas card. I want to say thank you, Greg. I absolutely love this thing. When I get stuff like this, folks, it puts such a smile on my face, and I just want to say thank you. Just a Christmas card, wishing me a happy Christmas. And he sent this puppy over. Now, it's an official game ball for rugby, I believe. So it's sort of like a football, but I believe it's a rugby ball. And I don't know much about it, and I haven't had any time to look it up, Greg, because I just sat down and got it. There's a bunch of names on here. I'm not familiar with any of these players. It's from Melbourne. It's an official ball, and it says on here specifically, it's a kangaroo brand, which is like hysterical. I was laughing my butt off about it. And so it's actually an Australian icon. Handcrafting Australian rules football since 1880, 130 years, chosen by legends of the great game. Punts, snaps, handballs, smell of leather, the whole thing. And what's so cool about this, it's not that Greg just sort of got on Amazon and just shipped it over, but he sent it, right? He actually went in Australia, bought it, put it in a box, shipped it over, and it actually, was sent over from Australia. This is, you can't see the actual address, but, Australia. I mean, it came all the way over from Australia, and I know that is a ton of work, and it's a wild thing for me to be somebody who's never been there. It's across the entire planet, and you sent that, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you for sending that, Greg, and Merry Christmas to you and your family as well, and to everybody out there as the holidays near. Let's see what else we've got. So a couple other questions before we wrap up. Hunter Biden says, whole trial seems to be about Hot Pockets. Where can I get mine? Better not be stale. Anything that is in the oven over 18 is stale to me. Ugh! Hunter, it's inappropriate. We have Grouchy Old Cat Lady says, picture with pants pulled down reminds me of the old Coppertone ad. Young girl's dog pulls her pants down. Yeah, that's fair, right? That was like on every single aisle at Walgreens for years or whatever they had back then. Kincaid says, not for nothing, but torpedoes are notoriously clumsy. I don't know what you're talking about there, Kincaid. Oh, Jake's here from Oxford. That's good. Rob, I have a decoration idea for your background. Let us gather evidence items to put in a trophy case of sort. For example, Kyle's AR. In this case, it could be a torpedo. I think this is a great idea. Oh, these Oxford people, they are so out of touch with reality. They have no idea what they're talking about. Jake from Oxford wants to put torpedoes behind me. This is a family show. This is a PG-13 show there, Jake. You need to look up the Urban Dictionary of a torpedo. Not good. DG McBride says, Rob, off topic. Want to ask if you changed the intro, or am I just getting here late this week? Have a great weekend. You know, DG, we're sort of skipping the intro because a lot of people just want to get right into the content. It's very important when you look at your YouTube metrics. One of the things you want to look at for all of you other content creators out there is your first minute, your 1 minute retention rate. So when you're watching, so let me show you this actually. Here's something that I look at when I am doing the show. So let me see, you're probably going to see an effect that looks like, a mirror, but this is what I can see. The audience is bailing out of here, right? Audience left, they're gone. Why? Because I started taking questions. Everybody left. But what you're looking at, that's your retention curve. How long do you keep the audience with you? And what you're looking at in YouTube videos is the first minute. You want to make sure that people are not leaving after the first minute. When I do the intro all the time, people get tired of hearing it. They skip over it and they leave. So it's important to just get right into the content within the first minute so that people don't bail out. If you see your retention curve, it just drops like that. You start, people, hey, interesting. Nah. Got to start it over. Get into the content. Move it. So that's why I do it. It's life. Oh, somebody's talking about my torpedo. Oh, gosh. Former LEO says, did you see the press conference about the Michigan school shooter? She never learned to say, I can't comment on an ongoing investigation. No, I haven't seen it yet. I am going to be taking a look at that whole situation because it's a mess. Chairman of the board sent me a message about that. We're going to talk about that. Spawn Dog says, Rob, it's not a legal question. It's a story involving me and how the justice system works and how I was used as a pawn in a game of chess. All right, Spawn Dog, I know, but it's still your story, and it makes me nervous. We'll talk about it on Locals. I'm not mad at you. I care about you. I want to tell your story, but I just want to make sure I'm not violating my ethical guidelines. So I appreciate you understanding that. Monster One says, what do you think is going to happen now that Rumble is going public? How much is that going to affect Locals? Are they going to become YouTube? I don't know, Monster One. I've got a lot of the same questions, believe me. But we're going to make do. And I'll share with you a little bit more about what we talked about and what's happening out there as well. John's back. Juan is back here. Juan says, the Spanish version of Heather is El Heather. Or it's La Heather, but be sure to double check your volume when saying that. That's how I fake Spanish. La Heather. Juan and La Heather Halgren are in the house. I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, I'm an Arizona guy. Should have known how to Spanglish size anything, but I botched it. Thanks for the correction. Thunder7 says, Rob, I have to respond to your comment that there are plenty of photos of Trump. Yes, they are. They're from over 20 years ago when Donald was hobnobbing around New York clubs. But it's the Clintons and the Gates and the Bezos and many Hollywood elites who went to the island and the ranch. Trump went to neither, yet all the headlines from the fake news are only about Trump and Epstein. Trial is a total farce. It is interesting. I mean, I have noticed that they are bringing up Trump a lot more than they're bringing up Clinton. If you just do a search of the transcript, it's a lot more Trump than Clinton. And it's interesting. Why might that be? Well, one, they're in New York, so the juror is going to be a bunch of anti-Trumpers there because that's what New York is. So, it might be just simply playing to the jurors, or it might be because, it's a lot of their side of the people of the aisle that might be implicated here, which is why they don't want to talk about it. Who knows? A couple more. We've got Spawn Dog says, Spawn Dog says, it's really not a legal question. It's an interesting story I would love to tell you. Started on a cold, drizzly October afternoon. Happened 25, 30 years ago. It kind of sounds like it might be an Epstein story, Spawn Dog. We have Chairman of the Board says, Hot Pockets are very underrated. I happen to think they're pretty dang good. I haven't had one in about 10 years.
Bizarre break-in at...
Oh, that's a news story. I don't want to play it because I'll get a copyright strike. But he sent us an article about Hot Pockets, about a man says he broke into a bank to cook a Hot Pocket. So that's just great. I love that. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty good. Jim Gaffigan, I think, has a whole thing about it. Monster One says, can you ask Australian Greg to point on the doll where the Australian government abused him? Seriously, that place is nuts right now, like pre-World War II Germany. Yeah, it's a good question. I'm surprised he got this out of there, actually. Maybe has he smuggled something in here? Is there like a secret message? Greg, do you need help? Let us know. We're looking out for you. All right, so we'll have to figure that out, Monster One. It's a good question. I'm not sure how he's doing over there, but it is messy. Your biggest fan says, Rob, always thought you were big, but not an oaf, but big. But out of curiosity, how tall are you? 5'8" 3/4 on a good day. So you can do with that information what you'd like. K Stu says, hey, we didn't all drop off. Well, that's true. I mean, the people who really, matter. All those other people who just leave, bye, get out of here. You're the ones that really matter to me in my heart. I'm glad that you're here, K-Stu. Love. Tremendous says, Rob, I've been missing your usual intro as well. Can you condense it, make it a part of your outro? As long as I hear that great, big, beautiful spotlight, then I'm pretty happy. Speaking of that, I still want merch. I need a great, big, beautiful spotlight t-shirt. I don't know. I'm not that creative there. I'm not that creative. I can just clip things and put them on slides and ramble out of my mouth for a few hours. But that's about it. And it sounds like that was all the... oh, no, here we got another super chat came in. The Loso says, what do you think about the prosecutor's comments on the school shooter's parents? So I haven't seen it yet, the Loso. I was wrapping up Maxwell. Now that Maxwell's done for the weekend, now we can talk about Michigan and all the other news that's out there. Because there is a lot of it. And we're going to continue to cover it. All of it. And we want you to be a part of it. So before we get out of here and wrap up for the day, I want to invite you to... I think these slides are out of order. Why are these out of order? I want to welcome some new people to our community. We've got Rebby Lee, who just joined up, and we've got Music Box Lady, we've got Big Ree, we've got Tester 16T, we've got Llama Brad's in the house, we've got Starfish 55, Aldo the Apache, Carrie C, Gino Scrajab, Rugger Bugger, J Markey, Cantonese, we got Brody Son, Squirrel Ono 50, we've got P Palin, Phantasmagloria, Black Cat Meow, Nick McLeod, Dr. Brenton's in the house, T Blakemore, Patriot Minute, Ben Tomlinson, Laurel 720, Unsheathed, Tucker Grebs, Tommy Nukes, Redbeard, Monique Nicole, Facebook Law 101, Dr. Hobo Jim Mambino, WV Ridger Rider 62, Mayhem Studios. And the reason why I'm so grateful that they're all here is because on Saturday, December 11th, from 7 to 8 p.m., friends, that's 1 week away from tomorrow, we have our ugly sweater edition of our monthly locals meetup happening via Zoom. You're going to be able to register via watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and it's going to be a ton of fun. So get out there. Get your ugly sweaters and come join us over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Couple final super chats came in. Ninjat says, I don't know what y'all are using Hot Pockets as, but I don't want to eat them anymore. Just over it. Ninjat, just over it. Doesn't want any more Hot Pockets coming in. Maybe you've just grown up. I don't know. Not that, you can't eat Hot Pockets anymore. And some dad says, in regards to Gates, Clinton, and Trump, why not catch them all? Who cares what side they're on? Common denominator, they were all wealthy and shady. I'm with you. I completely agree with that. I'd love to see the whole stinking web of lies come crashing down and be very happy to watch it all and be a part of it when it happens. And I hope that we are. And I hope you join us as well so that together we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And that, my friends, is it for me for the day and for the week. Probably going to have a locals live stream over the weekend because we've got a lot of unattended stuff that we got to talk about. So come join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And that, my friends, is it for me for the day. Have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. Unplug from politics a little bit. Spend time with friends and family, the people that you know and love. Get some good rest. And we'll be back again to do it all on Monday next week. I'll see you then, my friends. Be well. Bye-bye.